think we're good. We are in. Welcome in, everybody, to the AF show. I'm your host, Matt Sparks. This is my co-host, AJ Torres. How's it going, man? The first episode.
Absolutely. It's great.
We'll drink a little Dr. Pepper, eat a little pizza, talk a little Chiefs. I got this very fancy and official list, not the list I sent you because I left that one behind at work. All right, man. So, how's your day going, first of all?
Not bad, man. Pretty hot out today, but doing pretty damn good regardless. And I do got your list popped up in case you need it.
All right, I got it. Is it hot or is it like Connecticut hot?
Like, mid-90s today.
Oh, man, 105 here in the Oklahoma Panhandle, man.
I was out landscaping it. I know you were probably indoors teaching, right? Now, if the AC works or whatever, that's a different story. Yeah.
Teaching with the week. That's what's up, man. This when I decided to become a teacher, there's like a few things I needed, right? I needed because I worked in the oil field before that. That sucked. I needed to be home every night. I needed air conditioning, and I needed people to have to listen to me talk. And teaching fulfills all those.
There you go. I mean, pleasure comes with the pain, right?
Oddly enough, all the same things that come with being an amateur sports analyst as well. All right. Let's talk Chiefs, man. First thing I had on our list is the first 10 Chiefs cuts so far. There's been 2 rounds of cuts. We had one last Tuesday, and then we had one just a couple of days ago on Tuesday. And we see 10 total cuts, but as of today, none of those are with the team anymore because, of course, Chad Williams. I think it was Chad Williams and Elijah McGuire got released from IR today. So they do have opportunities to sign elsewhere now. What do you think?
You know, I kind of looked at the names. I didn't really have anything in mind unless it was something like somebody that I actually said to myself, you know what, this guy matters. I thought Taco Charlton, if he could stay healthy, I thought he was kind of I honest to God wanted to give him a chance. I just kind of thought to myself, right? And everyone's like, okay, what the hell do you think this guy's going to be? I'm like, okay, you have Jones on the nose. You have Clark on the end. He's got to have at least something. He's got to be at least some sort of distraction. That's all I was hoping for. Like, he didn't need to put up the numbers. As long as he was able to support those 2 guys. It may possibly be only one of those guys because of stupidity. But, you know, the same concept goes. Unfortunately, he just didn't make it. And if they think there's some other guy suitable to take his place, power to it. Aside that, it's really just been, if you look at the positions, tight end, wide receiver, running back. You got 2 DBs, a guard, a linebacker, a DE. I mean, I'm okay with that. There's nothing significant that I'm going to lose sleep over or I'm going to be pissed about.
So, I'm a Will Parks stan, have been since the start of the season, right? I really valued his since the start of the offseason. I really valued his versatility. Was really glad when Kansas City got him. By the way, I have a habit of this, right? I was really on board with Tajay Sharp. I was like, Tajay Sharp can be our wide receiver too, man. He could step and he's going to surprise some people. Gets cut. I was like, that's okay. Kamalei Correa, man, they signed him. He's going to be good defensive end depth. He might end up starting at some point on the linebacker core. He got cut. And then I'm like, okay, that's okay. Antonio Callaway, he can do some things for us, gets cut. And then I'm like, well, at least we got Will Parks, man. Will Parks is going to be the versatile defender they've been looking at. Gets cut. So I'm a Will Parks fan, but I want to ask you real quick, specifically Taco Charlton, because he's the most notable name that got cut, him and Parks. Taco Charlton getting cut. Does that make you feel better or worse about the defensive line?
You know, I'm just looking at the depth that we have. I mean, I'm kind of looking through this. I mean, we got Jones, of course. We got Clark. We got Okafor in that rotation, but obviously this isn't New York Giants Okafor type level. I mean, we'll see what some of these other guys can do, but if you do look at defensive end, defensive line on both sides, a little more stacked than I thought, a little more depth than I thought.
To me, it signals how much faith the team probably has in the defensive ends. Guys like Mike Dana, guys like Josh Kando, right? That they're like, you know what? We can let a veteran that we thought we were going to have to rely on earlier in the offseason, we can let him go because, of course, Jones is off on the edge now, right? And Jones and Clark coming off the edge, that's a potent mix, even if Frank Clark doesn't live up to his potential, which he probably never will at this point. But Jones off the edge has been a monster in camp. And, of course, then you have Noddy and Reed starting in the middle. That's a solid defensive lineup. And it makes me wonder, do they view a guy like Dana who had a lot of plays where he seemed to just be able to sniff out what was going to happen and be in the exact right position? Do they believe that he is the defensive end of the future? And the release of Taco Charlton makes me think, yeah, maybe they do. Because, of course, it's more financially feasible next offseason to part with Clark, in which case you're going to have to replace him with a Mike Dana or a Josh Kando or something like that.
Gotcha. I mean, a lot of people just think that this defense is just bad. And listen, the first part of the Andy Reid era, these defenses were bad.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not going to sugarcoat it. And I'm not going to lie, when Sammy Watkins was signed to this team, I said to myself, what in God's name are you doing? What in the hell in Hades are you doing? We need defense. And sure enough, I mean, Watkins is off the books now, and a lot of people are saying, do you love him? Do you hate him? Do you just like him? What do you think about him? I say it's a very complicated relationship, but I can't confirm or deny that without him, we have a ring or not. I'm just going to go with we don't have a ring without him. You could say the same thing with McCole Hardman doing the fakes all game long. It's just how it goes. But if you want to go about the depth on this defense, Deandre Baker, which obviously the reason why he was cut was because of what he was accused of, and he was a high-round draft pick. What do you think he is in our rotation?
Oh, man, he's sitting at the back. In fact, he's falling behind Mike Hughes. But remember, the depth chart is unofficial.
Well, right now, if we go by the depth chart, he's third rotation. Third rotation, right corner. That's where they have him labeled as. Now, obviously, that's not finalized, but the fact that you have some guy that had that much talent, hasn't got to know the system for not too long compared to these other guys, that just says something to you.
Well, one, I agree with that to a point. He's done well in preseason, but a lot of Chiefs defensive backs have really shown out in preseason. And to me,
Agreed.
That seems like a Taco Charlton thing, right? Not so much necessarily that he's just not doing as good as we'd hope. More along the lines of we've had defensive backs really doing well this preseason and offseason that we really didn't think were going to show up and do that well. We had no reason to think Mike Hughes was going to show up and play as well as he did. And I think it's encouraging the depth we have at defensive back and having that fourth or fifth corner that's still a first-round pick, right? Still a guy that a lot of people thought really highly of. Oh, sorry, I got so much gas, man.
Yeah, I mean, you just look at it, man. Like a lot of people wanted Ward's head, but even if you want to replace him with somebody else, I mean, Sneed, you got Juan, you got Honey Badger. It's really good for defensive backs on this team, even if it's just rotation guys.
I was so happy when Kansas City drafted Sneed because I do this.
Me too.
I do this show every year for Fan Blitz that nobody watches, right? And it's called Draft Room. And every chance I get to tell this story, I do because I was talking to Jamar Smith, the Louisiana Tech quarterback that got signed to the Patriots for a little bit, then got cut. And I was asking him, I was like, you played against teams like LSU. You played a lot of big schools. So tell me, who's the best defensive back you've ever played against? And he was like, oh, it has to be either Amik Robertson, or L'Jarius Sneed. And then when we got L'Jarius Sneed, I was like, hey, I know that name, man. So, like, that was awesome to me. But
just hearing that in the same breath, I mean, that matters. That's worth a damn.
Yeah, because he's played against corners like Greedy Williams. Grant Delpit, was he with LSU too? He's played against some of these great LSU defensive backs, and he's like, no. L'Jarius Sneed, all right, that's the guy. And
yeah.
L'Jarius Sneed still did well his senior year despite having to switch positions to safety, which maybe that's why they felt comfortable, letting a guy like Parks go, Parks is a versatile guy, had played everywhere, but Sneed has also, and played fairly well.
Yeah.
So, there's a lot of trades going down, right? Ryan Santoso got traded from the Giants to the Panthers. The Panthers traded Denzel Perryman somewhere. The Ravens traded Sean Wade to the Patriots today. If the Chiefs were going to trade a player away in one of these low-level trades, which they have before, like with guys like Mark Fields, who do you think?
Nothing comes to mind, unfortunately. And I think it'd be one of those things where you're probably not going to know his name unless you've really done a ton of research. But I think it's going to be it's definitely not going to be a household name by any stretch. It's going to be for either another guy in the same caliber, or it's going to be maybe just a low round pick, like a 5th, 6th, 7th round pick. I really don't know. Those things are very hard to predict, particularly with the team that, I mean, let's just face it. This is a win now team, and I have no idea what more they would add to this team. I mean, outside of a guarantee offensive lineman, but they really address that need so aggressively. I really don't know.
So, if I had to make a pick here, there's a couple of things I look for these low-level trades, right? The first is, a bit of talent, right? They've shown something to make you think, okay, this guy can deserve a spot on another team. Also,
correct.
It's a guy who's probably going to get cut from the team he's on, and that's the position Sean Wade was in for the Ravens, right? He was behind 6 defensive backs. Maybe you could say he was behind 5 defensive backs, and the Ravens only kept 5 at the start of last year. So they knew they weren't keeping him, but they might as well get something out of him. He gets caught up in the numbers game, and even though he's good, right, they don't have the room to keep him. And to me, a guy like DiCaprio Bootle or Devin Key, really, a couple of defensive backs, because a lot of these trades happen for defensive players. A guy like DiCaprio Bootle makes a lot of sense. He's done all right this preseason. Devin Key hasn't really done well in the preseason games, but did really well in camp. There was a lot of hype coming out about him. And so I think one of these guys that's like really in danger of being cut, because a guy like Devin Key, probably not going to make the roster unless he's just an excellent special teamer. And, it's going to be hard to be a more valuable special teamer than a guy like Watts, who Dave Toub already likes.
Yeah.
But I could also see him, would it be great? I know it won't happen, but I'm convincing myself it will happen. Sending Demarcus Robinson onto the Saints. That'd be fine with me. I'd love it.
Doesn't he have off the field issues though?
Demarcus Robinson? I don't know.
I'm not positive, but I thought there was something.
Time to hit the Google machine.
Let's see, Demarcus Robinson, or am I putting that in wrong, or?
No, not that I'm aware of.
Let's see.
I mean, he's from Florida, so I wouldn't doubt it,
Oh, never mind. I got it.
Who was it?
It's Demarcus Robinson. I was thinking of something else.
Okay.
Yep. Never mind. Carry on.
But Kansas City, already has more wide receivers than we're going to have spots for. Fountain has showed up really well. And Demarcus Robinson is good, right? He's talented, but he is what he is at this point. He's good for about, 400 yards or so each year and a few touchdowns each year. To me, keep a guy like Fountain and Pringle, and the combination of Fountain and Pringle, it might not be Demarcus Robinson, but there's not much chance it's going to be much lower than Demarcus Robinson.
The problem being is, and there's a lot of people that are saying this, like, yeah, there's a lot of non-Chief fans. Now, why do you want to score this by how good they are? Like, where do you rank them? 1 to 100, 1 to 50? I don't know. But if you rank wide receivers, a lot of people are saying Mecole Hardman isn't even in the top 50. And I said, listen, we don't know right now. And they said, oh, yeah, name somebody who he's better than. And I'm like, listen, you've had a guy, right? You have a top 5 wide receiver in the NFL on your team. Yes. And depending on how you grade your tight ends, a top 3 tight end, both on the same teams. You're telling me, yeah, you see, that might, if we say number 1, he might be called a homer.
Well, there's really not much to it. Like Kittle's thing that he's better in is run blocking, which is fine. Kelsey's a decent blocker himself, but run blocking in today's NFL is going to make him the all-time better tight end now. There's no way. But
however you rank him, right?
Yeah.
And the reason why is because somebody will make the argument for Waller and if he had a better quarterback.
Waller's great.
You see what I mean?
Yeah.
So no matter what, you have a top 3 and a top 5 wide receiver. However you rank them, you're telling me that you're going to have another top 20 wide receiver on your team, cut and dry? It doesn't work like that. Mecole Hardman, listen, the film is there. The tape is there. The evidence is there. He's had good plays. And, I've always endorsed Hardman to catch. I actually thought he was going to be one of those guys that changed his jersey number from 17 down to 4, too. I actually thought I was going to do that, but he didn't. Good thing. But with that being said, we'll see what these guys have. We have no idea the full potential of Pringle. We have no idea what's going to happen with Robinson when we give him a bigger role. And if you're telling me that Sammy Watkins hasn't been clogging up the opportunity for these guys, you could argue that, yeah, all he does is run a fly route so he could give Tyreek Hill a little bit more space. But we'll see. I think that you just can't put a cap on these guys and their potential. You can put a floor for them, but you can't really put a ceiling at the moment.
I like your take. I'm going to have to hard disagree specifically on Robinson. I agree we can't put a cap yet on what Hardman can do. I'd give it another year. But I think, it's fairly easy to put a cap on what Robinson can do because, there's been times when either Watkins has been out. There's been a lot of times when Watkins has been out. There's been times when Hill's been out. Robinson has a big game, has a couple of touchdowns. He has a big game and then, disappears for the rest of the season. So I agree with your take on guys like Hardman, guys like Fountain, guys like Pringle. I can't in good faith agree on Demarcus Robinson. There's just, I believe.
All right. Yeah. I think we could be a little optimistic and this is a different team this year, even though this is still in that win now mode. It's a different team. We got a different wide receiver too. We got so far, and let's please so help us that it's going to happen all the way through the season, a better offensive line, one that's dependable, one that's healthy. We hope. And with that, right, if you take the offensive line that's not going to blow chunks and is going to stay healthy, then guess what? You never know who Mahomes is going to throw to. Because before we got, 2 guys he's comfortable throwing to, and then there's everybody else.
I agree.
So when you have a shaky offensive line, right, we have no idea who the wide receiver 2 is at this point. It could be Pringle, it could be Hardman, it could be Robinson. It could be just a guy who's open on the play. I think it's just so open for us to just say something in concrete at the moment, particularly if it's just preseason.
Yes. But can we get close to agreeing that surely a combination of a guy like Fountain and Pringle is not likely to produce a lot less than a guy like Robinson? Can we say
the speed definitely gives them more of a benefit of the doubt?
Okay.
So I will give those guys you just mentioned a benefit of the doubt. And as far as what Robinson can be, well, I always say this to any guy for every take I do is you could gladly shut me up and I will take everything back. If I say you are straight garbage and you have the highlight of your life and have one of the best games you've ever played, hey, I'll be shut up. I'll take it back. And there's actually some times where in all sports, you kind of say it to players, just be like, I expect more out of you, XYZ. Then he has a great game. And the parent just keeps going and keeps going and keeps going. There's some guys like that.
Well, let me just say this beforehand. If Robinson is on this team, he will have a great game. But his season numbers will still come out 400 to 500 yards, a few touchdowns, right? He will have an amazing game where he puts up like 150 yards and 3 touchdowns. Everybody be saying, oh, eat your words. And then, he can coast the rest of the season.
But doesn't experience play a part in this? Because if you go by wide receiver experience, right? I'm just talking about wide receivers, not tight ends.
Mm-hmm.
You got Hill and everybody else.
Well, I mean, Robinson has a decent amount of experience, right? Like in terms of receptions, he has him and Hardman both have similar reception numbers. Have gotten about as many catches and about as many targets, or well, not quite as many targets as guys like Nelson Aguilar with the Raiders last year, as guys like Kendrick Bourne with the 49ers. So I mean, the experience is there, but I'm not a Robinson believer at this point. I believe he's fine. I believe on another team, maybe he's good. I don't know. Maybe the change of scenery makes him really good. But I think he's reached his ceiling on the Chiefs.
All right, that's fair. That's fair. And some people might consider that a good ceiling. But either way, I'm really excited to see this Legion of Zoom 2.0.
Me too.
Even though Watkins is out, I know Pringle is fast. Hey, if he could catch and he could be dependable, we just know this. If you give any 3 of those guys space downfield for a deep pass, they are going to make you run for your life.
One last note before we move on to the next one. A guy I would like to see get increased opportunity. No, he hasn't really earned increased opportunity, but if he makes the team, I want to see him get a few targets a game. That's Marcus Kipp. He runs about a 4.5 something 40, which isn't insanely fast for a wide receiver, but given that he stands 6'4", I mean, that's pretty quick, right? Pretty big guy, pretty quick guy. I always love the height-speed combination. I always think that gives you more opportunities at the ball against smaller defensive backs. Marcus Kipp's a guy, if he makes the team, right? It's still kind of a toss-up between him and Fountain. But if he makes this team, I want to see him get a few targets a game.
Gotcha. Before we move on, a question for you that I want to get to.
Absolutely.
How do you think, what's your thought on Jerick McKinnon joining this team?
Oh, Jerick McKinnon. So, the floor, right? The floor is great veteran running back. Well, no, I'm going to say the floor is great veteran running back depth, right? That fits right into the offense. The floor just above that, okay, good veteran back. That is Veach's yearly sign and trade back, right? Signed Carlos Hyde, traded him for Martinez Rankin. Signed DeAndre Washington, traded him right before the deadline last year. And, so that's the worst he's going to be. He's either going to be good veteran depth or trade bait at worst, right? At best, right. I mean, he could be a significant contributor in this offense, keep Clyde Edwards-Helaire's legs fresh, be a receiving threat out of the backfield, line up in the slot if we needed him to, be a monster at screens. I mean, if he stays healthy, the sky's the limit, man. Health has been his problem in the past, but he is just a wonderfully versatile running back. And if I'm thinking right, he's pretty good in pass protection as well.
Yes. But, hey, if we want to talk injuries, well, if we want to talk injuries, technically we could say, is Mahomes going to be 100% because one year it's the knee and next year it's the turf toe, and what's it going to be this year?
But
if you want to talk injuries, we could play that card all day. The what-ifs is what's going to scare the hell out of us and keep us up all night.
Most of Mahomes' problems have been contact injuries, and with this offensive line, man, he's not going to get contacted ever. A couple of McKinnons have been non-contact, but I think McKinnon is healthy now. I think he's ready to roll. I love him heading into this season, man. I might even pick him up in my fantasy draft here in a couple weeks.
I might, depending on what round it is.
17th. I don't know how many rounds fantasy drafts go. I'm not an expert fan.
I mean, again, I gotta see who's available and who's been taken off the board. I gotta see the whole thing in front of me and then go yes or no. I can't just say, oh hey, 15th round, is that too soon? 20th round, oh, he's a steal. I can't give you that one off the top of my head. It goes by how many people are in the draft, how many rounds.
I always, every year, take a guy that nobody else is going to take, right? And, of course, most times it's a bust. But one year, I took Terrell Pryor in my draft. And, of course, nobody took him. I ended up balling out for the Browns, man. Saved my fantasy league.
Yeah. Although some get weird, man. Like I do a league where it involves defensive players too.
I tried that. Didn't work.
Worked out great for me.
All right. Let's move forward. We've been talking about cuts. We got really caught up in talking about cuts. Who's the obvious next cuts, do you think? Go ahead.
If I had to guess,
we'll just go 5. Of course, there's a lot that we got.
I'd really have to go by position here. It's probably going to be the run back and wide receiver core being good.
Yeah. So
and I think there's probably some more defensive backs that they're going to say goodbye to. Just those 3 positions, and who they are, I don't know at this point.
I think Buechele hadn't gotten cut, right? So at quarterback, Buechele, is it Buechele? Yeah.
Yep.
Well, I don't ever remember how to pronounce his name because I always read it as Buechele, which
yes, me too.
But
me too.
At running back, I think it's obviously Derek Gore, right? Derek Gore's been around for the offseason, but he's the 4th running back, and I think Darwin Thompson might get the axe too. I don't know if they keep 4 running backs this year with Michael Burton as the fullback. I'd like them to cut Michael Burton. They're not going to. Okay, I'd like them to go without a fullback this year. They're not going to. At tight end, they could keep all 4, right? They could keep Kelsey, Gray, Bell, and Fortson. But I think if they believe Fortson's a good enough blocker, which I don't know if he's proven that well enough yet, I think they let go of Blake Bell and deploy Burton in that blocking role if they need one. Of course, on the offensive line, everybody from Andrew Wiley is in danger, but I think they keep him over a guy like Laurent Duvernay-Tardif when it comes down to it, right? I have a sneaky feeling they don't keep Prince Tega Wanogho, and that sucks because I really like Prince Tega Wanogho. So there's a lot of guys on the chopping block. The defensive backs you mentioned, guys like Rodney Clemens, Devin Key is probably going to get the axe. DiCaprio Boodle. They already waived Marlon Character. No, Marlon Character, he's going to go. All the undrafted free agents are probably gone and going to try to re-sign him to the practice squad.
Typical.
I got a question. Just by what we've seen this preseason, do you think they should keep as an extra linebacker Ben Neiman or Omari Cobb?
Tough.
Cobb's been a more effective edge rusher, but of course Ben Neiman, is like their sub-middle linebacker that they love to plug in. So,
I mean, I think this team really lacks linebacker depth the last couple of years. So, I'm right now I'm taking a middle linebacker over an edge rusher just based off of needs.
I hope that Dorian O'Daniel makes it. I always thought, he's never really shown out, but he's really athletic, I don't know. Maybe play him at safety or something. What about some surprise cut candidates? Like, who is somebody that you think might get cut, but it would surprise the hell out of everybody if they did?
Cut then re-sign and traded, that's one thing. I mean, I do think that Darwin Thompson, I think they gave up on too early, but that's one thing. Surprise cuts. Deandre Baker would surprise me, as much as stupid as that absolutely sounds. Some people might think, how the hell could you think that way? My thing is this: when you bring in somebody that has something troubling, even if they didn't do it, I think it could be I think this is in all sports, but all the four major sports here. I think it could be a distraction. I think it could really upset the locker room a little bit. Like, I think there's kind of like, do you let this guy in your air? Do you, like, have this guy have a cup of coffee with you? Yeah, that's just how I feel about it. Like, it's like, hey, dude, did you do something really stupid and get away with it, or what happened? I mean, there's a couple of guys that are never going to play in the NFL that were tied to the same story as him. You know what I mean? So it's like, did you get in trouble or not? You didn't bring this guy in, go through with all the crap and the baggage with him, just to come and go, you know what? You don't matter. You kept him around because you thought he was worth the damn, and you thought that his potential and his ceiling was great. You didn't have him come here with all that baggage for nothing.
And it's worth noting that the other guy that he was accused with, Quentin Dunbar, also a free agent, but a free agent because he didn't really do well in preseason. He was and he didn't do well last year with the Seahawks either. And so the Lions cut him. He is a free agent now, still waiting on a team. My surprise cut candidate, I think. I don't think they cut any more defensive linemen of note, right? Or at least I hope they don't. I'm actually not a Catholic, so. But there's a lot of Catholics where I live, so I know how to do that. All right, so I think Blake Bell could be a surprise cut candidate, like I said. And I don't know. I really think Armani Watts could be a surprise cut candidate if they value Devin Key very highly. Of course, I was more inclined to think that when Will Parks was still around because I wanted to give Will Parks that veteran nod for his versatility.
Can't knock it. Can't knock it.
All right. So, tomorrow, well, it'll be today when this airs, but tomorrow, Kansas City's going to play Minnesota. What are we looking for, right? Andy Reid said the starters are going to play about a half. I think they'll play a little less than that. So,
Same.
What are you expecting to see coming in to the Kansas City-Minnesota game?
Honestly, not much. I mean, not that it matters. I mean, it's preseason. I mean, you're going to see my energy change when it gets to the regular season and we start knowing what we have and we start seeing some real good film that we've all both watched and gone through several times. So, I mean, that's why I've seen like just a lot laid back, a little more optimistic and such. But I mean, I think for those secondary guys and those third rotation guys, I want to see some aggression, of course. And I want to just see if there's anything worth noting. Like, who's going to be that guy that's going to be after the quarterback the fastest? Who's going to be the guy who is going to put somebody on island in coverage? I always enjoy seeing that. I mean, I do see the linebackers. I want to see if there's if anyone blows an assignment, of course. For me, it's all defense because this is an offensive-driven team. Front seven, if I had to specify.
I agree with you. I want to see some urgency out of the defenders that are still playing late in the game, right? Because those are obviously your guys that are at most risk of getting cut. So I want to see a lot of urgency. I want to see them, since they're likely not earning jobs on the Chiefs, earn jobs elsewhere, right? I also want to see Prince Tagovailoa just completely road grade some guys. And I want to see him just lock down that entire left side and really force the Chiefs to keep him. Because I think right now the Chiefs are leaning toward I think the Chiefs are leaning towards just having Mike Remmers as the backup left tackle, having Mike Remmers as the backup left tackle, backup right tackle. Therefore, they can just keep a guy like Andrew Wiley that's, goodness gracious, that's also versatile. Keep a guy like Nick Allegretti that's also versatile, Austin Blythe, right? Just keep a few guys and basically only have to keep like 4 backups. And I think they're leaning towards that. I want Prince Tega to force the Chiefs to keep him because I don't believe in Mike Remmers at left tackle if he has to start any number of games. Now, I do think he'll be fine, right? But I don't think he'll be anything special. His last full season at left tackle is actually the ultimate sacrificial lamb to take down PFF numbers, right? And that's because his last season at left tackle was for the Panthers, and he graded out fairly well. He graded out in like the 70s or 80s or something like that, fairly well, right? Good numbers. And yet he led the league in sacks allowed, and not in the good way, right? He allowed the most sacks in the league from the left tackle position. So I'm like, okay, he graded well, but yet he like failed at the main thing a left tackle is supposed to do. So
since you mentioned the offensive line, here's a decent question for you.
go.
Where does Kyle Long fit in your opinion?
Well,
before I just thought, you know what, you might as well, because we didn't see the moves that were being worked through. We didn't see that Creed Humphrey was going to be here on this team. I actually thought that he was going to be off the board when we had our opportunity. And I was actually against Joe Thuney just based off the Patriot offensive linemen that leave, get paid, and they suck, and they just decide to suck somewhere.
But Joe Thuney played well last year, right? I mean, played very well.
He did, but how many times have you seen a Patriot offensive lineman go somewhere else and just suck?
Well, just let me ask you. He played well last year, right?
Yes.
Okay. Now, their offensive line coach, if I remember right, his name was Dante Scarnecchia, right?
And basically one of the best to ever do it of all time, yes.
Yes. Okay. He retired before last year, right? So
I think he retired and then he got brought back and now he retired again, something.
Because my theory here is Patriots offensive linemen typically don't do well when they leave because, one, they're unheralded guys to begin with, and Dante Scarnecchia makes them great, and then they don't do well once they leave Scarnecchia. But if Thuney has already done well without Dante Scarnecchia coaching him for a year, then maybe we can assume that the Kansas City Chiefs coaching staff can do very well with him as well.
We hope so, but again, anything from last year is just such an improvement. It's basically laughable what was last year.
Well, I mean, think about it. Mike Remmers starting at left tackle with less than a week's notice. Nick Allegretti, our former 6th-round center at left guard. At center, Austin Reeder, who still hasn't found a team. At right guard, Stefan Wisniewski, who just retired. Stefan Wisniewski been integral to 2 Super Bowl runs, but, he didn't do very well in the Super Bowl. And then, of course, our backup right guard at right tackle, Andrew Wiley. All right, so, yeah, it was as patchwork as an offensive line gets. And it was really
pain. Yeah,
it was really terrible to watch. But it's going to be hard not to improve from that. But I'm hoping that they can maybe fudge Kyle Long's injury, say, "Oh, let's take it slow with your injury, right? Cut a guy who's been there a while, right? Who has those accrued years, so he doesn't have to go through waivers. And then say, look, if we can cut you, we'll sign you back tomorrow. You'll have a starting role, but we need Kyle Long to be here so we can put him on that 3-week IR, right? Let Kyle Long ride out that 3-week IR, because I wanted to do this with Laurent Duvernay-Tardif, but it looks like he's going to heal up too soon. And let Kyle Long ride out that 3-week IR. Let him return to practice, activate that 21-day practice window, right? And that basically gives you 6 weeks with Kyle Long to see if there's going to be any injuries along the offensive line, see if you're going to need them. If not, tell them, you can either stay on as a backup and we can cut somebody, or you can request a trade and we'll try to find you a trade partner, or, we can straight up release you and you can sign him with whoever you want. Give him that opportunity once the time comes. But wait out that 6 weeks. Let Kyle Long get fully healthy, right? And wait and see if you have any injuries along the offensive line while stashing Kyle Long for a later date. I don't think they'll do that, but I think they should.
So here's the theory. And let me know if you like this or not.
Okay.
It's not going to be much. But how about you think that instead of cutting some of our offensive linemen, you want to know who's got the biggest offensive line problem in the NFL, and it's clear as day?
Oh, for a second, man. Okay. Go repeat it. You froze up for a second.
Do you know who's got the worst offensive line in the NFL, and it's clear as day?
Oh, man. I feel like you're going to say the Steelers.
No.
Oh, are you going to say the Giants?
Yes.
Okay. Now, Giants fans would disagree with you, man. I've learned not to say that.
Okay. Let me tell you something. Mm-hmm. I work in the state of New York, and if anyone is going to find me at a deli or find me at my workplace and try and tell me that the Giant offensive line is good last year or this year, I got news for you. They have a better chance of being able to pilot a plane. Okay, these uneducated morons called Giant fans that I run into are absolutely mindless, and they're just straight up salty. So, and mind you, I am using my words. You're a teacher. I am able to do so. I have not cursed on this show yet.
Fine, man.
And hey, listen,
watches my show.
As far as I'm concerned, though, it's like, hey, if your students ever want to watch this, guess what? I'll be clean for it, and I've done so. But guess what? That Giant offensive line is garbage. You've had 3 guys that you depended on retire. So whatever's going on there, it's not great. And for 2, possibly 3 years, they neglected that offensive line. And neglect is a great word. Because even though they're the last ranked offensive line last year in the NFL, what'd you do with your first round pick after you put a big Giant free agent contract on a wide receiver? Trade down. Stacked offensive line draft. Picking our wide receiver. Why? Because it's flashy? Look at how many offensive linemen, if there's one of them we don't like, we could see if we could get from the Giants for maybe a 5th or 6th round pick.
I mean, absolutely. I'm all in favor of Veach doing the old, these low-level trades that are happening right now, by the way, right? Trading away guys that probably aren't going to make the roster, guys like Laurent Duvernay-Tardif, guys. I don't think Kyle Long will be able to be traded just yet because he's not fully healed. So I don't think a team's going to trade for him. But given that Laurent Duvernay-Tardif's injury is fairly simple, one name I said early in the offseason, or at least semi-early, right after the draft, when Creed Humphrey got drafted, I was like, Austin Blythe might be a guy that you could trade away, right? He's a guy that played very well at guard and then played very well at center the next year, so the versatility is there. And especially if you're the Giants or the Steelers, somebody who, has an issue with offensive line depth, a guy that can play multiple positions is going to really help you out. And so I thought Blythe might be a nice option for maybe as much as a 4th-round pick if a team's getting desperate. But if not, 5th-round pick, player-for-player trade, something like that. And the Giants have been wheelers and dealers this offseason with picks and players. So,
they're mindless over there at the moment. Who knows what could happen?
Well, Dave Gettleman doesn't know how to use computers. So.
Well, not only that, but I just say this. I was actually listening to, I've been listening to a couple of podcasts and everything else, right? It actually sucks for Bears fans because guess what? Whether if Justin Fields is ready or not, right? The reason why he's going to start most likely week 1 to begin with is because guess what? There are 2 guys that should have been fired last year who have their jobs on the line. If Justin Fields does not work out, they're going to be on the unemployment line in Pace and Nagy. And I said this last year with the Detroit staff, but I'm like, listen, fellas, you guys are going to be fired before my mother's fist in the turkey. Thanksgiving, probably going to be gone. Because that's the cutoff of saying, you know what? You guys just stink. Go home.
I agree to an extent. The Giants really don't like firing coaches in season. I think the last one they did was Ben McAdoo, and they really didn't have much choice.
That was going off of the Bears.
Oh, the Bears. I'm so sorry. We were talking about the Giants, and then I knew we were talking about the Bears, and then all of a sudden just
it happens. It happens.
But anyways, to finish my story, Steve Spagnuolo took over that year. Yeah, the Bears. I think Matt Nagy and Ryan Pace. Is that the guy? Ryan Pace.
Pace and Nagy.
Yeah. So I think unless they win the Super Bowl, like even if they make the playoffs with Justin Fields, I think they're out anyways. And so I think Matt Nagy is sticking with this whole Andy Dalton thing to maybe buy himself some time because he knows there's like 0.1% chance he can win the Super Bowl, and that's about it, right? But in reality,
I'm gonna put my chips in now.
Oh yeah. I mean, I tell you what, can you imagine how much a couple $1,000 bet on the Bears to win the Super Bowl would net if they actually did? Can't imagine what the odds are, but
yeah, that's like me trying to bet on the NBA Finals right now and giving it to a team like the Kings or the Timberwolves. Give me a break.
Yeah. Or the Magic. I legit forgot the Magic existed the other day. Kid came into my class wearing an Orlando Magic jersey, and I was like, "Are the Magic still a team?" I thought they were.
What player? Wait, he had a jersey on?
Yeah, he had an Orlando Magic jersey on.
What player?
I don't know. I don't even remember the number. I just remember it was blue and said Orlando Magic.
Oh, wow.
I have like 40 kids in that class. There's no way,
Oh, I got you. That's a big class. I got you.
I
was about to say, man, like everyone was pissed about a couple of teams passing on Jonathan Kuminga. And by the way, his nickname is awful, especially if you're if one of your students actually popped into your class with a jersey on.
Yeah. Yeah, man,
It's raunchy.
I have students always try to argue me about football, and I'm like, look, I'm not an expert on football, but man, y'all don't know nothing. Like, and they're like, you're a bandwagon Chiefs fan. I'm like, it's on my skin.
Well, I mean,
Matt Castle and
the thing is that kind of goes different is we're part of a different era of football, and the problem is that these kids, late millennials and Gen Z kids, and the next generation of kids. We remember guys like Matt Hasselbeck throwing for 300 yards and he'll throw for 2 touchdowns, but he'll also throw 3 picks. And we would say he had himself a good game. Nowadays, it's like, I don't care if he got 2 touchdowns. He threw 3 interceptions. He's garbage.
But
they didn't experience that gunslinging era of the 90s and 2000s. They just didn't. It's erased out of their memory. Unless they remember a certain moment when they're like 5, it is a distant memory.
I got to say, though, there's a reason why people think that, right? Like 30 for 30, right? Like Jameis Winston went a couple years ago. 30 touchdowns to 30 interceptions. Man, that would have been a hell of a season for somebody, back in the 90s, early 2000s, right? That probably would have been a winning team. But with today's NFL and the passing-oriented nature of the NFL, it just doesn't work anymore. So,
also one of 8 players to throw 5,000 yards plus.
Yeah, I've heard
so it. when people say this, right, and I'm like, okay, what's the difference between a quarterback being good and great? And I say, has he thrown 4,000 yards? Like, 4,000 yards is nothing. I'm like, really? What's the magic number? 5,000. You know, it's only been done by 8 guys. Keep talking. The magic number is 4,000 plus.
Yeah, I get it, but man, I get that 5,000 yards. That's an impressive stat and all that, but the more impressive stat for just how bad it is the 30 and 30. And trust me, I've had that argument with Jameis Winston stands like so many times. I'll tell you what.
The horror. The absolute horror.
Yeah. Hey, let's look at the AFC West real quick before we hop up off here. Give me your evaluation of the AFC West.
Okay, I'm gonna just get straight to the point, and we're just gonna go with this.
I sense a lot of hyperbole coming.
Okay, to get the simple part out of the way, this is a Chiefs division. Okay, that's the simple part. Now let's start weeding through the garbage and the poverty organization. I'll explain in a minute. So we're going to, let's see, the worst team in this division, in my opinion, is the Raiders. Call it Oakland, call it Las Vegas, call it, oh, the fans are back. Okay, you're going to have fans dress up in makeup and beat each other up in the parking lot for what? Another year of mediocrity at best. I don't care if you're looking forward to free agency, because a lot of the fans are. Well, I got news for the Las Vegas fans. You want to know what they're going to be looking forward to this winter? Hockey. Not football. Hockey. Moving over to the Denver Broncos. High 10 draft pick and everything else going on. Not sure if they want to pull the trigger on Drew Lock or draft a quarterback. The fact that Teddy Bridgewater won this job. Listen, this is nothing against Teddy Bridgewater. But the fact that this is just going to be, Teddy's got the job, Drew's on the bench, which basically just means there's the curse of Peyton Manning, for one. And number two, it's a good thing John Elway actually took a step back, because the quarterbacks that he's been trying to fill the role with, of all the good defensive teams that just got wasted, the fact that they haven't even gotten any closer is just infuriating fans. And I just don't see when they're going to turn it around. The best shot they have is that next year they pick up Aaron Rodgers, which is going to be a nightmare for me and you. But the fact that that's possible says something. And then we move on to the Chargers. Let's see. All the fans disappeared in San Diego when they jumped ship. You got Herbie, the quarterback, your golden boy, so you hope. And what do you have? No fans in the stands. Bad food, were the fact that you think Subway is gourmet in comparison to them. And what do you have? With so much bad luck in the atmosphere of the Chargers, you want to know what they are? The AFC West Coast version of the Atlanta Falcons. Boom, I said it. Except the only thing, when you blow a lead that's like 20-something points, you're not going to blame Herbert like you blame Matt Ryan every single goddamn time. You're going to blame every guy on defense, you're going to blame the coaches, and you're going to blame everybody else but the quarterback. It's what they are. They are the AFC and West Coast version of the Atlanta Falcons. There's no other way to put it. The quarterback is great. The wide receiver, you got one guy that's great. Running back, respectable. The rest of it is just a crapshoot.
Okay. So I was confused there for a minute, because I thought for a second that you were saying that the Falcons should be blaming Matt Ryan, but aren't. But no, I get what you're saying.
Oh, no, yeah. the fans blame Matt Ryan for everything. It's like, yeah, we just lost by 3 touchdowns today. Oh, yeah, by the way, Matt Ryan, you suck. They do. Yeah. They do, and that's why they're in an absolute disgrace.
Oh, I know some good Falcons fans. All right,
I know some good ones. I do too. I got a guy I grew up with, diehard Falcons fan. We're talking. I went to elementary school with the guy, and I saw him with a Warwick Dunn jersey, a Michael Vick jersey before everything happened. This guy is faithful all the way down to his veins. But there are some guys who just point the finger, talk out of their ass, and they're just garbage.
By the way, I'd be remiss if we were talking about the Falcons and I didn't shout out my guy Caleb Huntley, all right? Caleb Huntley has made it to the final round of cuts, undrafted out of Ball State. He was on our show Draft Room, so, like, that's my guy. But, yeah, the funniest thing I heard that you said, it cracked me up, because I loved how you pretended that Las Vegas has fans. That was great. But
well, I mean, I said Chargers have fans.
Well, I know, but you were like, you know what Las Vegas fans have to look forward? hockey, but there are no.
Yeah,
Las
the
Vegas
the
fans
Vegas
for sure.
fans are going to be looking towards hockey because they're not going to be any good. They're going to be so garbage, and they're going to be like, you know what, the Golden Knights are winning, so let's go this way.
So, Vegas has had the worst luck this offseason. Well, they have toilets overflowing in their new stadium. They went cashless, and then all their machines went down so nobody could get food. I mean, it was just...
The food wasn't great. Did you see what the food looked like?
I did not.
Let's just put it to you this way. You walk into a Subway, and you're going to think it's gourmet.
I'll tell you what.
Listen, if you were at a revenue where, the tickets are absolutely outrageous, a beer costs like $15, and the sandwiches they give you have like plastic looking lettuce and yellow, like orange, like very orange government cheese on the sandwich, and the pickles that are sliced, they look hard. The fact that is considered the food. I mean, granted, I'm a little biased being on the East Coast, but that's not food they serve at that stadium.
I'll tell you what, and I wanted to say something. You guys got delis on the East Coast, right? Delis are a big thing on the East Coast, right?
I want to say delis are a big thing. I can't really say Connecticut. I'm just going to go with New York and New Jersey.
Yeah, New York, New Jersey, delis are a big deal.
Oh yeah,
delis almost don't exist in Oklahoma, right? We have like cheese shops and things like that, like little weird things.
But that you see, we would consider that a deli. You know what I mean? It's like, hey, it's weird because like over in the state of New York, right? I could go to a gas station if they got a deli, and I could have myself. I'm gonna be like, hey man, make me a sandwich, and I got confidence. But it's funny because in Connecticut, I'm not doing that. Somewhere outside of New York and New Jersey, probably not doing that.
So they got bodegas there too, huh?
Oh yeah, you got bodegas.
Yeah, see, I've never seen a bodega. I don't even know what a bodega looks like. I only know about bodegas from Seinfeld, all right? Everything I know about New York comes from Seinfeld and Spider-Man. I'll tell you what. Like, watching Seinfeld, New York seems like the funnest fucking place in the world to live, I swear to God. Like,
it's not like that anymore, man. I mean, I think it was at one point, but just mind you, the only time I really got to soak in the culture was starting the 2010s, and I'm late to the party, and things have just declined from them.
Yeah. So, my take on the AAFC West is everyone has a good but not great roster. Like, everyone has a lot of potential, but like one fatal flaw. And let's start with the Raiders because it's the worst for them, right? They got this new stadium. They got a lot to live up to and everything else, right? People have invested monetarily in them to get this big new stadium in Los Angeles. Tourists are going to be coming to see their games and shit after they go to the casino. And yet there's a problem, right? And the problem is that the second most important position in sports, I'm not talking about quarterback, I'm talking about the head coach. They're not even halfway through John Gruden's big old contract yet. And word on the street is they don't have the cash to get out of it because they can't afford to pay somebody else because Mark Davis doesn't have any money. Le'Veon Bell. That was good for them, right? That's where being poor was actually a good thing, right? And I live in a three-bedroom trailer, so I'm not going to sit here and say being poor is a good thing. It's a very bad thing, especially for a football team. And you got to stick with John Gruden as your coach. And the worst thing of all is there's 17 games now, so you can't even go 8-8. The Raiders, you're going to have to go 8-1. You're going to have to tie somebody. It's going to be the most Raiders thing ever when they go 8-1 and still don't have a winning or a losing season.
They're so poor. They're not going to have ball day at the stadium. It's going to be bring a ball day because they can't afford it.
Yeah.
And the fans would do it because they're so stupid.
I tell you what, man. I'm going to sell reused corn dogs at the stadium. It's going to be terrible. Right? They're going to be asking the airport casino for loans. Like, it's going to be rough.
How about we go tailgating in Vegas? We're gonna do Costco burgers and hot dogs. Half the proceeds go to buying out Gruden's contract.
Wait. If we do Costco burgers and hot dogs, get the generic brand, right? Raiders fans not gonna know what the hell to do. They never eaten a meal like this. This is fancy shit, all right? But so for the Raiders, it's the worst of all, right? For the Chargers, the injury bug. The injury bug is, I don't know, man, it's going to hit them at an inopportune time, but otherwise, they have a good roster. Now, their wide receiver core is kind of hit or miss, right? They don't really know if Mike Williams is a guy yet. They really don't know if he's going to be the next big thing, but they know Austin Eckler's good. They know Keenan Allen's good. They got Jared Cook, who's good, right? So you got a lot of good, but not a lot of great on that roster. And then Justin Herbert, you know, he was good, and then he was kind of meh for a while, and then he was good again. And who knows what Brandon Staley is going to do. But then we get to the Broncos, right? And the Broncos look great, except, right? Okay, so the Broncos look really good, right? They got Melvin Gordon, right, who really has had a career resurgence. He's doing pretty well, right? They have Tim Patrick, who was their leading receiver, and now he's like their wide receiver 4. They got Cortland Sutton coming back, who everybody's like, wow, this guy is great. They got Jerry Jeudy, who's supposed to be an excellent route runner, coming back. All right, they got KJ Hamler, the guy that runs a 4.240. They got all these guys sitting there on this team, and then Teddy Roosevelt Bridgewater here. I love Teddy Roosevelt Bridgewater, but he's like less talented Alex Smith. Like, he's a game manager at best. They're going to win some games this year, right?
Also, let's also add in, this is also in Drew Lock's case too, that offensive line is also not that great. If you look at the times where not just Kansas City, but just regular teams where they go after Drew Lock, he's running for his life. He steps back in the pocket and he goes, I am not okay.
Yes. I want to say I think that will be mitigated by, I think Drew Lock has spells where he makes really good, quick decisions and he looks really great. And then he gets flustered and it sticks with him for a while. And then he doesn't make great decisions for a while. I think Teddy Bridgewater is going to be a little more consistent in that. I think Teddy Bridgewater had 5 rushing touchdowns last year. So, there's a bit of mobility there. There's a bit of avoidance. And I want to say the Broncos feel like they have pretty good depth too. I think they signed Bobby Massey at right tackle, who's, no all-star, but he's a solid right tackle. They signed a few veterans on the interior, right? And they still got a couple of young guys that haven't really played much for him yet. So I think the prediction will be all right because every AFC West contender has 1, maybe 2 pretty good pass rushers, right? But if we ever get a game against the Broncos within the division where Chris Jones, Frank Clark, and Jaron Reed decide to show up at the same time, it's going to be hell for the quarterback unless we're playing against the Chargers, because the Chargers made a point to invest so much into their offensive line. If we're playing the Raiders, Derek Carr's going to die. If we're playing the Broncos, Drew Lock or Teddy Bridgewater, which I think Drew Lock will end up starting games this season, because I don't think Teddy will do bad, but Teddy will be the scapegoat when they start losing some of these tougher games.
Yep.
Because Fangio is going to be like, I think this is time to make this change. We're going to try to give our team a spark. And he's not going to say Teddy's doing bad because he'd be lying, right? They'll say, we think Drew can give our team a spark, right? In fact, the way they're continuing to talk about Drew Lock right now lets me know that they've chosen Teddy Bridgewater because he's the safe option, but they were really in their mind sitting there like, come on, Drew. So I'm like, it's Drew Lock, not Drew Brees. Come on.
Yes, spot on. So basically the Raiders have become a poverty franchise in Vegas, which is ironic. The Chargers just are surrounded by bad luck, and the Broncos have still they're good, but they beat their own self up too much.
By the way, I think when we play the Broncos, right, if Jody Fortson makes this team, I think we'll see a game where Travis Kelce and Jody Fortson both have over 75 yards and both get a touchdown in that game, right? Because that secondary is good, right? That secondary is pretty good, pretty deep. I think their wide receivers will have some trouble, but I think the tight ends will just be able to pick on some guys.
Yeah. And we'll see. We shall see. And also, there's some defensive backs. I remember last year, it was the game that snowed in Mile High Stadium, and our defensive backs had a really, really great game.
That was where that was 2 years ago, wasn't it? Because that was where Tyron Matthew poked it out against Cortland Sutton, right?
Yeah, and I think Juan had a pick too.
Yeah, that would have been 2 years ago, I think.
2 years ago. There we go.
Because,
Oh yeah, that's right. It wasn't a COVID year. That's right.
The only reason I know that is because Cortland Sutton had that lost pass in that game, and he didn't play last year.
But, that's right. That's right.
All right, man. You got any last thoughts before we hop off here?
Well,
thoughts about the game coming up, thoughts about cuts, thoughts about the season, let us know. Come on.
Well, the first thing I'm thinking of is when every time I see a Vikings matchup versus the Chiefs, I usually think of the Super Bowl, me being as a kid, just going through the book and seeing every Super Bowl one all the way to present. This is what it kind of reminds me of, but then I think to myself, you know what, just remember, the Vikings are only good one year out of every decade, so... if it's about winning, I think we got it. And again, I just want to see the rotation pieces on defense. I just want to see something good. I want to see how versatile and how explosive they are. That's it. That's all I got.
I'm excited to see Bouchel play another game. First game I think of when I think of Chiefs versus Vikings, and I know this is probably sacrilege as a Chiefs fan, but I think about that game that Matt Moore came in and won during the Super Bowl season, right? Had to step in for Pat Mahomes, did well against the Broncos, went toe-to-toe with the Packers, but then come in and beat the Vikings to keep us in contention, man. And so I'm like, well, hell, if Matt Moore can beat the Vikings, Shane Bouchel surely can. So I'm pretty excited, man. I hope the Chiefs keep a quarantine quarterback this year on the practice squad like Matt Moore or somebody like that.
Yeah, I mean, also, let's not disrespect Chad Henne because that time against the Browns, tell me you were not holding your breath the entire time.
Oh, yeah. It's getting to be a close game. We're relying on our backup quarterback. I like Chad Henne, right? But I liked Matt Moore a little bit more, all right?
I can agree there, but even though you held your breath both times.
Did it. You freaking did it, man.
Yeah.
I mean, Chad Henne, what is that, a 14-yard scramble on 3rd and 15, and then on 4th and 1, he just guns it in there to Hill. Hill sits down on the turf, man, and I'll tell you what, it's great. Henne closed out the Browns, right? We play almost a half of a game without Mahomes, and Chad Henne's like, I got this, man. I can do this. And he, come on. Chad Henne did so well, and we were worried about whether Pat Mahomes is going to be available because they thought he had a concussion and things like that. And I was like, Chad Henne played well enough that, I was like, well, even if Mahomes is out, we might still beat the Bills, because it's Chad Henne, man. Anything is possible.
Anything is possible. That's a great way to.
That's a popular saying on Chiefs Twitter. I did not coin that phrase. All right. Well, man.
Whoever did is amazing, and thank you for Chiefs Kingdom actually likes me for a little bit of today. Most of the people in the Kingdom, at least online, it seems like half of them hate me.
Oh well, that's just because you're from the East, man.
It's not because I'm from the East. I mean, a lot of people play bandwagon, but I think that's a lot of guys, particularly those. Let's see, Tom Brady jumped ship. Either their team sucks or they're a Gen Z or millennial that just has given up on things. Then there's me who just says, hey, I'm optimistic and it's okay for me to not like a move by Veach or a decision by Coach Reed.
That's not okay. Okay. I don't know what you're. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, you see what I mean? There's some people that think it's sinful.
Hey, I know Dave Tobe is a legendary special teams coach. I hate Dave Tobe. I do not like Dave Tobe. I do not like that he gets final say in who gets to be on the roster. All right, for a couple of years there, special teams was so awful and the return game was so bad that I was like, why are we even keeping Toba around? He's supposed to be great. He decides he's going to be on the roster. Like, if Toba had his decision, we would have DeAnthony Thomas on this roster compete for a spot right now, all right?
Hey, if you're a member, there's some special team coaches and some other coaches that just are not great, that say stupid things. Do you remember Steve Smith Sr. talking about David Culley?
I do not.
His first Pro Bowl, he made it as a return man. And apparently during that time, I think it was his rookie year or something, David Culley went over and David Culley goes, "Excuse me, son, this is for wide receivers." And had that turn out. Basically, Steve Smith Sr. called Coach David Culley a joke and a complete asshat. Yeah. Which, if you look at him, well, this year he's going to go like he's going to have like 2 wins this year if he's lucky. So I get it.
Yeah, but there are special teams coaches who do very well, right? John Harbaugh, Super Bowl under his belt, man. I mean, like, John Harbaugh is a hell of a coach, and say whatever you want about the Ravens, Lamar Jackson, but John Harbaugh, easily one of the better coaches in the league.
Oh, I like Harbaugh. I do.
Always assembles a quality staff. It just seems like, I don't know. I never hear any stories about players having problems unless they're making the problems themselves, like Earl Thomas was, right? Like Mike Tomlin, you hear about a lot of guys in the Steelers organization like having problems, you know, Le'Veon Bell, Antonio Brown, and things like that. But you just don't really hear a lot about John Harbaugh having problems with guys.
You know, they do say that the Harbaughs are basically some of the biggest egos in the game.
No. They say that about Jim Harbaugh. That's different. Jim Harbaugh is a dick. People don't like Jim Harbaugh. Jim Harbaugh was an asshole. That's why he got kicked out of San Francisco. And I love Jim Harbaugh in San Francisco. I've never heard.
I mean, I like both of them, but it's just, you know, they both have a certain energy. They both have this certain charisma. They're both charismatic. Now, one has an ego over the other, I will say. But if I had to, you know, I mean, it's just part of the game. As far as certain players, oh, definitely for sure, there's not a problem unless they have one. Yes. Le'Veon Bell, ego. Plain simple. I did not want Le'Veon Bell to touch this team. And the fact that that guy had the balls and the audacity to say, I'd rather retire than play for Coach Reid again. Why? Because we didn't kiss your feet? Piece of shit.
Yeah, but yeah, I mean, you're right. He is a piece of shit. Like, he acted like a piece of shit on his way out of Kansas City, which is weird because he acted so great on his way in, right? And
seems that way, yeah.
He acted so great on his way in. He was like, I called Clyde Edwards-Helaire. I wanted to make sure it wasn't going to be a problem. And I think it's because he believed that he was going to be able to outsnap a rookie running back at some point. And if Clyde Edwards-Helaire...
And plus, what is a rookie going to say? A guy who's only played X amount of games is going to talk smack to a veteran, regardless of how you think of him? Yeah. There's no way that could happen. So what he basically did was he said all the right things, tried to do his due diligence and say, I'm happy to be here. But who knows? That guy could cause a problem at anything.
Oh, yeah.
As far as there's always stuff behind the scenes that we don't know about it. The problem is that a lot of players don't keep it in the locker room. Now, do I think that there's some things like in the Saints organization with Sean Payton? There is a little controversy over Michael Thomas's ankle injury, whereas like the coach says do this, one guy says do that, one guy. I think there's a lot of dirty hands in that case scenario, but I think majority of the time it's a player and then the coach and or the team responds in a manner.
Yeah, and I think that Le'Veon came in thinking at some time I am going to beat out this rookie running back. Or if this rookie running back goes down, at least I'm going to be number 2, right? And he was like, I can be a part of getting a ring. But then he didn't beat out Clyde Edwards-Helaire. And then when Clyde Edwards-Helaire went down, he really wasn't even the main snap running back. That was Darrell Williams. And so he ended up just having a LaShawn McCoy tenure in Kansas City. And LaShawn McCoy had a LaShawn McCoy tenure with Tampa Bay. So, I mean, I hope that's not how Jerick McKinnon ends up this year, because Jerick McKinnon seems like a good guy, seems more talented than either of these two. But I remember having super high hopes for LaShawn McCoy when he came into Kansas City as well. My hopes for Le'Veon Bell were a little bit more tempered.
For me, with Le'Veon, I was just kind of like, I don't want you. What are you doing here? And don't talk shit.
Oh, see, I was excited to get him, but
I wasn't, because again, I just didn't want that ego potentially clogging up the locker room with this filth.
yeah.
And listen, I have no idea if he said it very casually to the media. So we don't know what the real story is of what happened inside, but it seemed like it was dealt internally.
Yeah.
Was that because of COVID? We don't know. Because there's not a lot of people in there and all they do is work the phones,
Yeah.
or they join a Zoom call, something. I mean, we don't know the real story. But the fact that he came out and said that I don't want to ever play for Coach Reed again, when he is a future Hall of Fame head coach, and the proof is in the pudding that he's a very likable guy.
Yes.
That just tells me that, dude, you have a problem.
Yeah.
Whatever it is, cut the shit. You got a problem.
Same way with Steven Nelson, I feel like. Steven Nelson went to the Steelers and he was like, oh, best team I've ever been on. No cap. Oh, Kansas City Chiefs suck. You Chiefs, everything else. I'm just like, really? You got to take pot shots on your way out of town? And there's been a few players come out and say this, but all of them seem like guys who, really their future has passed them by, right? Their time in the league is basically over, because think of the three main guys that have done this, right? Let's go with Steven Nelson, played for the Steelers for a couple years, got cut. Now he's in Philadelphia, right, on a not large contract. Le'Veon Bell, who came in and didn't play much, right, after forcing his way out with the Steelers and then not doing much for the Jets. And then the third one, Orlando Scandrick, who didn't get on another team after the Chiefs and sucked while he was here. So, it's guys that were once good. That's the common denominator, right? They used to be good, but they came to the Chiefs and there was other
I got a good one
players,
for you.
Huh?
I got a good one for you. His career did get turned around, but Marcus Peters, before he got traded to the Ravens, now mind you, he got traded for what, a 5th round pick, and everyone said, okay, so what? The Ravens are getting burnt toast. Okay, go for it. We don't care. Guess what?
Picking Kenny Young too.
Yeah. And so with that, right, they got a steal and they re-signed him.
Fucking excellent. He has been wonderful for the Ravens. And
absolutely. I didn't want him gone. I liked him. I really did.
I didn't mind. I knew when you got a talent like that and the trade offers didn't come in fast and furious, right? You knew that the league knew that there was a problem, right? And that he was going to need the exact right situation to fit in. And he went to the Rams. That wasn't the right situation. He got teamed up with Kipp to leave, and I don't imagine that helped anything, right?
No.
I like Kipp to leave as an analyst. I did not like him as a player. All right, he's basically like one step from Pac-Man Jones. And, yeah, and both were on the Broncos at one time, by the way. And so he's like basically one step from Pac-Man Jones. But Marcus Peters, when he goes to the Ravens, who are just a better, more centered organization, man, he does well. Not a better, more centered organization than the Chiefs. I'm not trying to say that. I'm saying a better, more centered organization than the Rams, right?
In a better place.
Very well. So
we could say that, just in a better place, and I absolutely agree.
You gotta have the right kind of scenery, maybe for Marcus Peters, that's being in a bigger city where he can get some hobbies. I don't know. All right, but whatever it was, Kansas City wasn't doing it for him. LA wasn't doing it for him. He gets to Baltimore. He finally finds that fit that he's looking for, and just does well. So I'm glad for him. I'm not glad for guys like Orlando Scandrick. Orlando Scandrick can, screw that guy.
I hear you.
Le'Veon Bell, same way, man. He's going to get signed by somebody, but I can't imagine who. And then I don't know why I don't know why I harbor any ill will towards LaShawn McCoy, but kind of him too, you know.
Shady, it's different. And just remember, he was healthy scratches the entire time, just simply because he held the ball like a loaf of bread.
Yeah, healthy scratches in the playoffs, healthy scratch for the Super Bowl.
But I think that was Andy Reid because he said, hey, I got other guys that, are good the way. I mean, the fact that Dame, right? And I was very sad they didn't come back, but guess what? Without Dame, it's a different story.
Man, Damian Williams, I'll tell you what.
Soft
He's going to be a
heart.
forgotten name in Chiefs lore, and that's going to be really sad, right? Because his time here wasn't that long. And if Chicago cuts him, he might find himself out of the league in a couple of years, and that's so sad because he is an insanely talented back. I tell you what. And it's going to be rough. If Kansas City gets the opportunity next year and they're needing a depth back, I really hope they bring Dame back, man.
You got to bring back Dame. He's just ill.
I know it doesn't work too well, right? We tried bringing back Charkandrick West, right? We tried bringing back Spencer Ware a couple times. Just didn't work out. But, I mean, Damian's different, man. That's Damian Williams.
Also, Dame wasn't really hurt. Those are two guys hurt.
Yeah. And, man, that's rough for Spencer Ware, man. Like, he should have a shot. He just can't stay healthy. Rough.
Yeah. Something's in the water.
I'll tell you what. On that sad note, let's call it a day, man.
Yeah, I agree.
All right. Hey, thank you for being on. Let's do it again, right?
Absolutely.
I think it went well.